All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to dive deep into the real science of building muscle. We're going to cut through all the noise and actually look at what the research says is the most effective way to get bigger and stronger.
I mean, this is such a classic problem, right? You're putting in the hours, you're being consistent, you're working your tail off, but the mirror and the weights just aren't telling the story you want them to. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, then you are in the right place. We're going to get to the very root of why that might be happening.
Okay, first things first, let's get our key term for today on the table: muscle hypertrophy. It sounds complicated, but it's really just the fancy scientific name for what we're all after: getting bigger muscles. And a key thing to know is that it's not about creating more muscle cells. It's all about making the ones you've already got bigger.
So how do we actually fire up that engine? What's the real signal that tells our body, hey, time to build bigger muscles, right here? And believe it or not, it all boils down to one single crucial factor, and that is mechanical tension. Seriously, this is it. Think of it as the on switch for muscle growth. Every time you lift a weight, you are creating this tension on your muscle fibers, and that one act is the main thing that kicks off the entire muscle building process.
So let's break down how this actually works, step by step. First, you apply tension, right? You lift a weight. That tension then activates these special signaling pathways in your cells. The most famous one is called mTOR. Now, this mTOR pathway, it's like a foreman on a construction site, and it starts shouting, hey, we need more building blocks over here. That command triggers what's called muscle protein synthesis, where your body literally starts building new muscle proteins. And finally, those new proteins get woven into your existing muscle fibers, making them bigger and stronger. It's this beautiful biological chain reaction.
Okay, so this leads us to the real million-dollar question, doesn't it? If tension is the key, does that mean more is always better? Like, should we just be doing more sets, more reps, more everything to get more growth? Or is there a catch? Well, to answer that, we're going to dig into a really fascinating study that put this exact question to the test.
So here's a setup. Researchers got 34 guys who were already experienced lifters, so not beginners, and they split them into 3 groups for 8 weeks. Here's the kicker. The only thing they changed was the volume. One group did just 1 set per exercise, the next did 3 sets, and the high-volume group did a whopping 5 sets per exercise. Everything else was kept the same. So what do you think happened?
Okay, first up, let's look at strength. And honestly, the results here were pretty shocking for a lot of people. Check this out. When it came to raw 1-rep max strength, on things like the bench press and the squat, it basically didn't matter if the guys did 1 set or 5 sets. The strength gains were practically identical across all 3 groups. Let that sink in for a second. That means a super efficient 13-minute workout was just as good for building pure strength as a grueling 68-minute one. Wild, right? But, and this is a huge but, when they measured actual muscle size, the story completely flipped on its head. It was the exact opposite. You can see it right here in the data. There was a crystal clear dose-response relationship. The low-volume group, they grew a bit. The moderate group grew more, and yep, you guessed it, the high-volume group grew the most. When it comes to size, more sets directly meant more muscle. And this just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? The big takeaway is that your training volume depends entirely on what your main goal is. If you're all about getting stronger, guess what? You can get amazing results in a very time-efficient way with lower volume. But if your number one goal is getting as big as possible, the science is clear. You've got to put in the work. More volume leads to more growth. All right, so now that we know volume is king for size, let's get super specific. Let's take that science and apply it to a goal pretty much everyone has: building bigger arms. Because there's a little secret here that most people completely miss. Yeah, this quote from Jeff Cavalier really hits the nail on the head. He's saying that if you look at your arms from the front and they still look kind of skinny, you can do all the bicep curls in the world and it won't fix it. The problem isn't your bicep peak, it's your arm width. And to fix that, we've got to look under the hood a bit. So let's do a quick anatomy lesson. Everybody knows the biceps brachii, right? That's the muscle on top that gives you the classic peak. But hidden underneath it is another really important muscle called the brachialis. Now, think of the brachialis as the foundation. When you build up that foundation, it literally pushes the bicep up and out. And that is what creates that awesome visual width and thickness. The problem is, if you're only doing standard curls, you're probably not hitting this muscle properly at all. So, here's the solution. To get that arm width you're looking for,
you have to shift your focus. The goal is to pick exercises that intentionally minimize how much the bicep can help, forcing that brachialis to do the heavy lifting.
And a perfect example of this in action is the crossbody hammer curl. So think about it. By using that neutral hammer style grip, you're already taking the bicep out of its strongest position. Then, by dragging the weight up and across your body, you're forcing almost pure elbow flexion, which is the #1 job of the brachialis. This isn't just a random curl variation. It's a precision tool to target that width. Okay, let's put this all together now. We're going to wrap everything we've talked about into a simple, smart blueprint that you can literally take with you to your next workout.
So here it is, your blueprint. Step 1, define your goal. You have to know, am I training for max strength or am I training for max size? They're different. Step 2, adjust your volume. Based on that goal, use lower volume for strength, higher volume for size. Easy. Step 3, never forget the king of all variables, mechanical tension. You've got to focus on progressive overload, always trying to lift more over time. And finally, number 4, train the muscles, not just the movements. Think like an artist. Understand the anatomy, like that brachialis muscle, to unlock a whole new level of growth.
So there you have it. You've got the scientific blueprint now, you understand the critical difference between training for strength versus size, and you even know how to apply it to build the body you're after. The only question left is, how are you going to use this to train smarter starting today?